All right, here's something I haven't done in a while, which is an unboxing video. As is usually the case with the unboxing videos I've done in the past, I like to do unboxings of older out-of-print games, typically ones that were made and out of print before there ever were unboxing videos, just because these are sort of a disappearing breed. You're not going to find very many unpunched copies of these games, and once the copies are punched, you can't undo that. So it's just sort of a, I don't know, the historian in me or something is finds it appealing that these older games can get this look in an unpunched, pristine condition where not many of them exist this way anymore. So I just recently acquired a copy of This Hallowed Ground. This is the gamers version of Gettysburg at the regimental level. This is from, it says 1998. It was weird, I thought it was older than that, but anyway, 98. It's the regimental sub-series of the Civil War Brigade series by the gamers. I just did a video on Gaines Mill, which I'm currently playing right now over on the other table. And I had, as I also pointed out in my other video, was playing Last Chance for Victory right there, which is the more modern take using the new Line of Battle series, the modern take on Gettysburg that uses the Line of Battle series, which is the modern successor to the Civil War regimental sub-series. So if you're keeping score, this is basically the gamers' original version of Gettysburg as designed by Dave Powell. Last Chance for Victory then is the sort of follow-up revised version of the gamers' Gettysburg title, but that one's designed by Dean Essig, and he points out that they are two distinct games, and he encourages players to try each game, one to see Dave Powell's take on Gettysburg, and the other to take Dean's take on Gettysburg. So I was kind of interested in that. I've played Last Chance for Victory a couple of times, and being on sort of a Gettysburg kick right now and a Civil War kick in general, I decided, you know what, I've never really thought that I needed a copy of This Hallowed Ground once I got Last Chance for Victory, but thinking about it more and dwelling on it more, I was like, no, I do want to see what the difference is between these two versions, these two takes, approaches to the Battle of Gettysburg at the regimental level. So the nice thing is that I can play both games with the Line of Battle rules. I don't think I'm going to play this with the regimental sub-series rules. I don't know how much that's going to change Dave Powell's vision of the game. I'm guessing that his approach to the battle is not strictly defined by the rules set that it utilizes. So, and the main reason I don't want to do it with the RSS rules themselves is simply because I don't want to learn the RSS rules, especially while I'm concurrently playing Line of Battle. It could just be too confusing. I think it'll just be easier to do them both as a Line of Battle. So anyway, here's the game. There's no back, and this is the case with most of the gamers' games from the 90s. The artwork on the front, you'll notice, is similar. It's actually not similar, it's exactly the same as, oh, look at that. Victory Games, the Civil War. Now, if you're gonna use a cover, or if you're gonna reuse a cover of an existing war game, it makes sense that you would use the cover from probably the greatest strategic American Civil War game of all time, which is the Victory Games Civil War. In my opinion, there's no contest. There have been obviously strategic Civil War games since this, notably For the People, the CDG Mark Herman CDG on the Civil War. Very good game. But it is not VG's The Civil War, which is definitely more of a hex and counter title. There's no CDG elements to this. I think CDG just is a whole different animal. So I don't want to get too off track. Well, I always get off track, but I don't want to get way off track talking about the Civil War, but I don't think there's another strategic level Civil War game that will rival this, or that has rivaled this, including the more recent release from GMT, the US Civil War, which had a lot of problems when it was released. But, so same cover as VG's game, except rendered worse than on the VG box, as is the case of all of the Gamers CWBS and RSS titles prior to their MMP acquisition, maybe even after the MMP acquisition, but certainly prior to. They're terrible, universally terrible. There's no good covers of any of the CWBS games. Now, they might have some good artwork that they've chosen. This is a very evocative painting. It's a good painting, but whoever was doing it was, taking a horrible scan of it or an old photo of it or something and just slapping that on the cover of the box. Not cleaned up, not scaled appropriately. Some of the game, some of the covers are nigh illegible to even, you can't even hardly tell what it is. The scan is so bad, or the quality of the image is so bad. It's just, they just didn't know how to render an image and scale it appropriately to the size of the box they were using. There's the fonts all over the place. This is just inarticulately loaded on flags. I would not be at all surprised if that flag had 50 stars on it. I mean, just this kind of crap that just results in these horrible covers for all of the Gamers titles from this era. So as box art goes, the Gamers titles are close to the bottom. But as gameplay goes, they are all close to the top. So, we'll forgive their terrible box art. This is one of the big, 3-inch boxes, which is good when you've got a game of this size. And as you can see, it's actually filled up almost to the top, although I did already pop it open and look in there, and there's a reason that it's almost up to the top. There's not actually this much cardboard in there. Somebody actually put in 3 what looks like the GMT counter trays. So I think historically these games did not come with counter trays, at least older CWBS and Gamers games that I've purchased didn't have counter trays in them. So I'm not sure if the person I bought it from put the counter trays in there, or if when he bought it there were counter trays in there. But anyway, so you can see Civil War Brigade Series rules. So if you've played the Brigade Series, that's what this comes with. These are literally the Brigade Series rules. You can see old-timey, they've got the charts in the middle that you have to pull out. You pop the staples open and pull those charts out. They're not on cardstock. So you actually just have the CWB Series rules book. This is what would come in any of the CWBS games. But then you have what actually covers this game, this regimental scale game, and it's the regimental sub-series rules. So, and these are actually a lot shorter than I thought. I haven't actually read these rules before, but as it turns out, they're only 8 pages, and most of the pages 6, 7, 8. Actually, page 8's an advertisement, and then pages 6 and 7 are designer notes. So you really only have 5 pages of regimental sub-series rules. But they are, if you've ever seen a gamer's rulebook, they all look like this, even the ones of games released today. So over 25 years of the rules looking exactly the same. But hey, it works. The rules layout is great. It is 3 columns, reminiscent of the old SPI era of rules. I always like the 3-column rule books as opposed to the more modern 2-column that like GMT uses, for example. But here are charts and tables for the regimental sub-series. A lot of these are familiar even for people with line of battle. Even in line of battle, you're still doing core attack stoppage, still doing your orders acceptance, still doing initiative. A lot of the things are the same. Morale table doesn't look quite the same, but probably functions in a similar fashion where you've got the A through G levels of morale. Fire combat, still, yeah, based on fire points. Then your range, weapon types, and so on. Close combat, gun loss, straggler recovery. So similar tables and stuff. It's ultimately going to be in just the resolution of fire combat. And I think the combination of fire and movement, there's no longer separate fire phases. So that's a big thing that LOB does that speeds the game up a lot. And there's actually 3 sets of the charts and tables there, so that's good. And then here are the game-specific rules for This Hallowed Ground, and you can see, as in Line of Battle, this is also very long. But this, I mean, the reason these are long is because they've got your, it's just the order of battle here. They've got your setup information, so it usually takes up a lot of pages. I believe there are not nearly as many scenarios in this, just judging by the length of the setup rules. There's not nearly as many scenarios in this as there are in Last Chance for Victory, which has a ton of scenarios. So, but I am excited to read about this, to read what the various special rules are and the scripting and sort of stuff. I think there's a lot less scripting in this, in terms of, making units behave certain ways in order to try and keep the battle on a moderately historical track and not let it go totally off the rails and become something totally other than Gettysburg. 48 pages of special rules. So I'm looking forward to that. And then you've got brigade level loss charts here, which is interesting. Actually, this is a whole book, and a pretty thick one at that. Last Chance for Victory did not include loss charts, but you can actually print them out on the Gamers Archive website. I kind of like the loss charts because they make it easier to keep track of wrecked regiments, wrecked brigades. I usually use both the markers and the loss charts. The markers are good just because you don't have to look up your regiment in a game this big where you've got not hundreds of regiments, but dozens of regiments. It's helpful not to have to pore through the loss charts to find a particular regiment to see what their losses are. You can just see them on the map. But it makes it easier to keep track of at what point a brigade or a division becomes wrecked. So it's handy to have these loss charts, just to kind of run concurrently with your markers on the map. So tons of these, man. I think a lot of these are duplicates. Because I don't think, or like, extra copies. But I think the same here. I think you can print these out on the Gamers Archive website. So counter sheets, there's a little extra half counter sheet with some breastworks and route markers. And then you've got your unit counter sheets. And these all look very similar to the Last Chance for Victory counters. I think the main update on the Last Chance for Victory counters was on the leader counters. I think they look a little bit differently now. I'm trying to remember. I've got some sitting over here. And I don't know if I have leaders handy. I don't want to take them actually off the map. Now, they are similar. I feel like on the Line of Battle ones, they maybe don't have the stars in the background anymore. But otherwise, they look very similar. And you can see, so for the Confederates, they break down the corps by background, by counter color. So you've got probably First Corps, is the light gray. Second Corps is kind of this, the more like sort of butternut color. And then Third Corps is sort of this tan color. Weird, it almost has like a pinkish hue in this light, but just sort of a tan color. Then you've got your Union. This is the Army of the Potomac. Now, this is interesting because the Union Corps all have the same background color, but their big difference is having, instead of state backgrounds, they have the Corps designation. So your Maltese Cross for the 5th Corps, your circle for the 1st Corps, the it's not a shamrock, I forget. It looks like a like a 3-leaf clover or whatever for the 2nd Corps, but it has another name and it's escaping me at the moment. Your diamond for the 3rd Corps, the cross for the 6th Corps, the star for the 12th Corps, which is not on this sheet. It's like they're here. Yeah, there's the 12th Corps with the star, and then the crescent moon for the poor old 11th Corps. And then here, okay, that's Rebel Cav, which again, H Corps, it's optional, looks like. D.H. Hill, yeah, he wasn't there. So anyway, the counters are effective. These are definitely a little harder to read than the Last Chance for Victory counters. Those counters, for the Union Corps and Last Chance for Victory, each Union Corps also has a different color background. They still have the Corps designation symbols on them, but in another easier to read way, they're a lighter color. And so I think the darkness of these Union counters is what makes them harder to read. But so definitely the Last Chance for Victory, the Union counters are easier to read. The Confederate ones are the same for Last Chance for Victory. I think even down to the same, using the same color background, the light gray for 1st Corps, the butternut for 2nd Corps, and the tan for 3rd Corps. So 4th counter sheet, looks like still a few more, rounding out a few more Confederate counters and a few more Union counters. Looks like all of the artillery. Are these interesting? There's actually, you can see here, replacement for counter mistakes on sheets 1 through 3. So they provided errata counters for the same game. I've never seen that before. Here's errata counters on this counter sheet for earlier counter sheets in the game, since usually counter sheets are all printed at the same time. That's very interesting. That's pretty cool. Oh, hey, and this is a new one, the Jenny Wade counter. Not unlike she's baking her bread there. Not unlike the Constable John Burns counter in Last Chance for Victory. I actually need to look at this and see if they have Burns here as well. Yep. So you do still have John Burns right there. He doesn't do anything. He just adds morale to the stack that he's in. He's floating around McPherson's Ridge on the first day. And then your list, your counter, your markers. And then just Dean Essig was always a big fan of having overkill on the markers you can use. So I'm not sure if I'll even punch these. I may just use the massive amounts of markers from Last Chance for Victory, as opposed to using those. So anyway, that's the rules and the counters. And so, not an insignificant stack of paper and cardboard. And then I believe there are 5 maps. Oh, there are also a couple of charts, extra charts. So this is your terrain effects chart, which not on cardstock. It is in color and glossy, but it's like just a little, some heavier stock paper, but not anything, certainly not cardstock. And then your turn track, your day track. This looks not, unlike the Last Chance for Victory track. And then you've got your lost charts, ammunition and artillery ammunition and casualty track, dead and wounded leaders, destroyed units. They don't actually have these for Last Chance for Victory. They do away with the ammo tracks and all that stuff. You just keep track of all that off the map. And then, as you can see here, somebody put in three counter trays, and These look like GMT counter trays to me, which is why I think maybe they're newer. But I don't know, maybe they came with the game. There are dice in there, so maybe these did come with the game. It'd be pretty nice though. That was three whole counter trays. All right, I'm gonna lay these maps out as best I can. So bear with me while I do that. I don't really feel like editing the video, so I'm just gonna try and do this live. These are possible. These maps have never been unfolded. I mean, the game is unpunched and unplayed, so these are super creased, and they're on kind of this, like, the front side of the maps is glossy, but the back side is fairly flat paper, and the CWBS maps are very similar to that. All right, so that's map A. You were looking at a little round top. Okay. So, man, I'm gonna have to backfold these big time. These are about as tight a crease as I've ever seen. Okay, this is, I think, leading into, oh, this is like 3 maps across the top and 2 across the bottom. I don't have enough table space to actually lay it out perfectly. So definitely a larger map area than Last Chance for Victory, which even has like a 2-map version that you can do. Loosely sync these up. I think, yeah, that's roughly. Where that matches up. So let's move this camera back. Move it down here out of the way at the moment. Use this chair to prop up the overhang here. This side. It's definitely far from perfect, but I mean, that's the, you can see how the 3 lay across the top there, which is interesting. It sort of widens the field around Gettysburg and then narrows it down the further south that you go. And you can see this map gets pretty far south of Big Round Top. And I mean, you know, this, you're looking here, this was about as far south as any of the units got. You may have had some Union Cav running around down here, but I mean, that's Big Round Top there. So this was sort of the southern limits of the line. And then over here, you know, this gets this 3rd map, and there's not much I can do about the glare except try and get lower. This puts you, considerably east of the town of Gettysburg, and I don't know if that's. I'm not sure if that's as far east as the Eastern Cavalry Field battle. If that's what this map, if that's what this goes out so far to do, is to let you replicate that Eastern Cavalry Field. But you can see, if I can avoid the glare. I have this standing on the tripod here. Now the legs are getting in the way. Trying to get low enough. And it doesn't help that the map has these peaks and valleys all over it. But yeah, there you go. There's the town. Right there. And then Culp's Hill, Cemetery Hill, the familiar Cemetery Ridge, then down to the Round Tops, and then coming in over here from the east, the Chambersburg Pike, and there's the seminary, Herbst's Woods, where all the first day fighting goes on. So, and you can see just in terms of color and terrain and all that, a much, much different looking map than the Last Chance for Victory map, which I think is a much more accurate map in terms of terrain. One of the things that Dean Essig wanted to do, and he has a background in cartography, so he knows his maps. One of the things that he wanted to do was to pull the terrain off of the hex grid. And as you can see here, the terrain, it's not precisely modeled hex for hex, but it's very much, the edges very much correspond to the hex grid itself. Like, there's not a lot of half of one type of elevation and another in hexes. It conforms pretty closely. And the CWBS, the Civil War Brigade series, even does that even more so. And that was one of the things that Dean wanted to get away from in here, which was really just let the terrain be what it is and then put your hex grid over it and let the chips fall where they may. So I think that creates a more accurate terrain representation. And the colors are definitely more muted here. And there also are a lot more gradations. I think there's, something like crazy, like 15 elevation levels in the Last Chance for Victory map. I think just looking at this, it doesn't appear that there are nearly that many here. So, but very interesting. It's much larger. I have to add another table along this top section here to handle the three wide maps. My other problem is I think I'm out of plexi with both Last Chance for Victory and Gaines Mills set up over there. I've used up all of my plexi, and I have plexi cut for the size of my tables, but I don't have as many sheets of plexi as I actually have tables. So the problem is the creases on this map is so bad, I don't think I could do a Callendale version where I just play it on the, with no plexi, just on the map itself. Even backfolding this, I think it's going to be a problem. So I may have to go out and get a couple more plexi sheets cut to size for these tables. So we'll see. Anyway, there we have an unboxing of This Hallowed Ground from the gamers. I'm looking forward to getting this on the table and seeing how Dave Powell's vision of Gettysburg stacks up with Dean Essig's. Should be interesting.